Have you ever wondered if there are places on Earth that simply refuse to let people leave? Not because of locked doors, not because of murder, but because something inside that place doesn't want you to escape. 20 years ago, in the forgotten countryside of the United States, there stood an abandoned Victorian mansion that locals refused to mention after sunset. It wasn't just another haunted house whispered about around campfires. Police reports, missing persons files, and terrified eyewitness accounts all pointed toward one terrifying fact. Anyone who entered the house after dark never came back. No bodies, no blood, no explanations, just silence. The government eventually sealed the property and erased it from every official map, but the stories never disappeared. This is the terrifying mystery of Black Hollow House. In the autumn of 2006, hidden deep within the dense forests outside the small town of Black Hollow, Pennsylvania, stood a forgotten mansion that had been abandoned for decades. Massive oak trees surrounded it so completely that sunlight barely reached its cracked windows. Locals avoided even looking in its direction. Children were warned never to walk near the property, and hunters refused to cross the old dirt road leading toward its rusted iron gate. No one could remember who originally built the mansion. Old newspapers claimed a wealthy industrialist named Edward Ashmore constructed it sometime in the late 19th century after becoming one of America's richest railroad investors. But according to local legends, Ashmore changed dramatically after his wife and daughter died under mysterious circumstances inside the house. Neighbors claimed strange lights appeared every night. Screams echoed through empty hallways. Then, one winter morning, every servant disappeared. Ashmore himself vanished only weeks later. The mansion remained empty ever since, or so everyone believed. For decades, teenagers occasionally dared one another to touch the front porch before running away laughing. Most never stepped inside. Those who did never returned. The first officially documented disappearance occurred in October 1986 when two amateur photographers entered the mansion hoping to capture images for a paranormal magazine. Their pickup truck remained parked outside for weeks. Their cameras were later discovered lying just inside the front entrance. Every photograph showed the exact same thing, an empty hallway, except the final image. In that photograph, both photographers had somehow disappeared, yet the hallway remained perfectly empty. Police initially suspected kidnapping. Nothing was found. Years passed. More disappearances followed. A pair of hikers, 3 college students, a local historian, even a police officer investigating the earlier missing persons. Each entered. None returned. The FBI briefly became involved, but quietly abandoned the investigation after finding absolutely no physical evidence. The house seemed to swallow people whole. In 2006, investigative journalist Daniel Carter had spent nearly 15 years exposing government cover-ups and solving unsolved mysteries across America. He believed every mystery eventually had a logical explanation. Ghosts didn't exist. Demons didn't exist. Fear came from misunderstanding. When he first heard the stories surrounding Black Hollow House, he laughed until he saw the files. 27 missing people, 0 bodies, 0 suspects, 0 clues. That simply wasn't possible. Daniel convinced his producer to fund a documentary exposing the truth behind America's most mysterious abandoned house. His crew consisted of 4 experienced investigators. Lisa Morgan handled cameras. Eric Dawson specialized in audio recording.
Thomas Reed operated thermal imaging equipment, and Sarah Collins documented everything in writing. They arrived just before sunset. The mansion appeared even larger than photographs suggested. Broken stained glass windows reflected crimson evening light. Its towering roof leaned dangerously to one side. Hundreds of crows circled silently overhead without making a sound. That alone disturbed Eric. "I've never seen birds fly without making noise," he whispered. No one answered. The silence surrounding the property felt unnatural, not peaceful, empty, as if every living creature deliberately avoided making the slightest sound. Daniel approached the enormous front door. Surprisingly, it slowly creaked open by itself. No wind, no movement, just an ancient wooden door inviting them inside. Lisa forced a nervous laugh. "Probably loose hinges." Daniel nodded confidently. "Exactly." He stepped inside first. The air instantly became freezing cold. Their breath turned visible despite it being early October. Dust covered every inch of the enormous entrance hall. Portraits lined both walls. Every face had its eyes scratched out. Thomas checked the temperature monitor. It just dropped 20 degrees. Daniel shrugged. Old buildings do strange things. Still, something felt wrong. All their watches stopped simultaneously. Every digital camera briefly shut off before restarting. Eric's audio recorder emitted loud static. Then, a woman's voice whispered clearly through his headphones. "Leave." He froze. "What?" Everyone looked toward him. "I heard someone." Daniel searched every room nearby. Nothing, only empty corridors disappearing into darkness. They continued deeper inside. The mansion's interior appeared impossibly large. From outside, the building seemed to have perhaps 20 rooms. Inside,
Hallways stretched endlessly. Doors appeared where none should exist. Rooms connected in impossible ways. Lisa quietly pointed toward a staircase. "Didn't we already climb those stairs?" Daniel turned. She was right. The exact same broken chandelier hung overhead. The same torn wallpaper covered the walls. The same grandfather clock stood frozen at exactly 9:17. Somehow, after walking forward for nearly 10 minutes, they had returned to the entrance hall. No one understood how. Thomas nervously suggested leaving while they still could. Daniel refused. "We're dealing with architectural confusion." No one believed him anymore, especially after Sarah noticed something horrifying. Fresh footprints. 5 sets, leading deeper into the mansion. The footprints belonged to them, but none led back. It was as though they had entered the hallway without ever walking out. Lisa stared silently. "We're still making footprints." She looked behind them. Nothing. The dusty floor remained perfectly untouched where they had just walked. Eric slowly whispered, "Then who's making those?" At that exact moment, a loud door slammed somewhere above them. Then another. Then another. Within seconds, every door in the mansion began slamming shut one after another. Boom, 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 boom. The echoes shook the entire house. Dust rained from the ceiling. The walls trembled violently. Then, complete silence. Not even breathing. Daniel looked toward the staircase. Someone stood there. A little girl, wearing an old white dress, barefoot, motionless, her face hidden behind long black hair.
No one had seen her arrive. She slowly lifted one small hand and pointed toward the second floor. Then she vanished. Not by running, not by hiding. She simply ceased to exist. The camera recorded everything, or so they believed. When Lisa replayed the footage seconds later, the staircase was empty. The girl wasn't there. Yet all 5 investigators clearly remembered seeing her. Daniel finally admitted something he had never said in his entire career. I don't think we're alone. Daniel's voice echoed through the silent entrance hall before disappearing into the darkness above them. No one answered. The only sound was the slow dripping of water somewhere deep inside the mansion, although none of them could determine where it came from. The air had become even colder, and each breath seemed heavier than the last, as if the house itself was pressing against their lungs. Sarah tightened her grip on her notebook. "We should leave. We've documented enough." Daniel looked toward the front door. It was gone. Not closed. Gone. The wall where the entrance had been now stretched across the hallway, covered with faded wallpaper and cracked wooden panels that looked centuries old. Lisa ran her flashlight over the wall in disbelief. No, that's impossible." Eric rushed forward, slamming both hands against the wooden panels. "This was the exit!" Solid. No outline, no handle, nothing. Thomas pulled out the blueprint he had downloaded from county records before the trip. His face slowly turned pale. "This hallway isn't on the blueprint anymore." Daniel grabbed the paper. The floor plan had changed. Rooms had shifted. Hallways had appeared where there should have been empty space. One entire wing of the mansion simply didn't exist on the map. "What kind of joke is this?" Daniel whispered. No one answered, because no one had touched the blueprint except him. Trying to remain calm, Daniel suggested they leave through another entrance. They walked toward what should have been the eastern hallway. Instead, they found a massive library. Shelves stretched from floor to ceiling. Thousands of books covered in dust lined the walls. Every clock inside the room had stopped at exactly 9:17. Sarah carefully pulled one book from a shelf. The title read, "Visitors." Inside were hundreds of handwritten names, each accompanied by a date. Every missing person officially connected to Black Hollow House was listed. Sarah flipped another page. There were photographs. Not printed photographs. Drawings. Perfectly detailed sketches of every missing person standing somewhere inside the mansion. Smiling. Looking directly toward whoever had drawn them. Then, she reached the final page. 5 blank spaces. Beneath them were today's date, October 14th, 2006. No names. Not yet. Sarah slowly looked up. "We need to leave, right now." Suddenly, the lights on every camera switched off. Darkness swallowed the room. Only Thomas's emergency flashlight remained. Its beam shook violently in his trembling hands. Then they heard footsteps. Not one person, many. Slow, heavy, coming from every direction. Lisa whispered, "Who's there?" Silence. The footsteps stopped. Daniel swung his flashlight toward the far end of the library. Nothing. Then he turned left. Nothing. Then Eric gasped. Behind them, every chair in the library was occupied. Dozens of people sat perfectly still. Men, women, children, all dressed in clothing from different decades. None moved.
None blinked. They simply stared. Thomas nearly screamed. Were they there before? No one knew. The figures remained motionless. Daniel forced himself forward. Hello? No response. He approached the nearest man. The stranger looked almost alive. Skin, hair, eyes, everything appeared normal, except his pupils were completely white. Daniel reached out to touch his shoulder. The moment his fingers made contact, every seated figure turned their heads toward him at exactly the same time. Their necks twisted with a sickening crack. Lisa screamed. The lights exploded. Glass shattered throughout the room. When the emergency flashlight flickered back on, every chair was empty. Only thick layers of dust remained, as though no one had sat there for decades. Eric was breathing uncontrollably. We're hallucinating. Daniel wanted to agree, but the camera battery in Lisa's hand suddenly powered itself on. The screen displayed a live recording, not of the library, of the second floor. Someone was standing in front of the camera, a tall man wearing a black suit from another century. His face was hidden in shadow. He slowly raised one finger, inviting them upstairs. Then the recording ended. Nobody had gone upstairs. The footage had recorded itself. Against every instinct, Daniel insisted they investigate. If there's someone here, maybe they're responsible. Thomas stared at him in disbelief. You still think this is a person? Daniel didn't answer. The staircase creaked beneath their weight as they climbed. Each step echoed longer than it should have. The second floor smelled strangely fresh, like flowers, not decay. Every bedroom door stood open. Inside each room were perfectly made beds. Fresh candles burned without melting. Dust disappeared completely. It looked as though someone had been living there yesterday. Sarah entered one bedroom. A music box sat on the bedside table. Without anyone touching it, the music began playing, a slow, haunting lullaby. She froze. Inside the mirror above the dresser, she saw herself. Behind her stood the little girl in the white dress. Sarah spun around. Nobody. She looked back. The girl remained inside the mirror. This time, the child smiled. Blood slowly streamed from beneath her eyes. Sarah screamed and stumbled backward. Everyone rushed into the room. What happened? She pointed at the mirror. It reflected only themselves. No little girl, no blood, nothing. Daniel gently lowered the camera. Stay together. But it was already too late. Eric was gone. His audio recorder lay spinning on the floor, still recording. "Eric!" Daniel shouted. No answer, only static. Then Eric's voice, soft, terrified. "I'm downstairs." Daniel frowned. They all looked toward the staircase. Impossible. Eric had disappeared only seconds ago. Again the recorder spoke. "No, I'm in the basement. Please don't let them." The recording suddenly cut off with a deafening scream, unlike anything human. Lisa dropped to her knees, crying. Thomas grabbed Daniel by the jacket. "We're leaving, now!" They ran downstairs. The hallway had changed again. Where the staircase should have ended, another staircase continued downward into complete darkness. Cold air poured upward like frozen breath. Sarah stared into the blackness. There wasn't a basement.
"There is now," Daniel replied quietly. From below, they heard Eric again, weak, barely audible. "Help me!" Daniel couldn't abandon him. Ignoring everyone's protests, he stepped onto the first basement step. The wooden step groaned, then another. The deeper they descended, the colder the air became. Their flashlights barely pierced the darkness. Finally, the basement opened into an enormous underground chamber, far larger than the mansion above. Ancient stone walls surrounded hundreds of wooden doors. Each door had a number carved into it. Hundreds, thousands, each door identical, each locked. Lisa noticed something written across the stone floor. Every soul must choose a door. Before anyone could react, one door slowly creaked open by itself. Number 28. Inside stood Eric. He looked unharmed. He smiled. "You found me." Thomas ran toward him. Daniel suddenly noticed something horrifying. Eric wasn't breathing. His chest never moved. His eyes were completely white. Thomas stopped only inches away. "Eric?" The smile widened unnaturally. His jaw stretched farther than any human mouth possibly could. Bones cracked, skin split. A voice that sounded like dozens of people speaking together whispered from inside him, "You're next." The chamber exploded with deafening screams as every numbered door began rattling violently from the inside.